Picture a world where every good deed is broadcasted for all to see, a stage where morality is performed more than practiced. Welcome to the age of virtue signaling. Imagine scrolling through your social media feed, bombarded with posts about environmental causes, social justice, and charitable acts. Are these posts driven by a genuine desire to effect change, or are they more about crafting a public image of moral superiority? In an era where social media reigns supreme, the lines between genuine activism and performative gestures have blurred. Virtue signaling, a term coined to describe the act of expressing moral values to enhance one's social standing, has become a ubiquitous feature of contemporary life. From corporate campaigns to political rhetoric and everyday social media posts, the performance of morality often takes center stage. Virtue signaling is not a new phenomenon, but its prevalence and visibility have skyrocketed with the advent of digital communication. It refers to the act of expressing opinions or sentiments to demonstrate one's good character or moral correctness on a particular issue, often without taking substantive action. This behavior is particularly noticeable on platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where public validation through likes, shares, and comments can be a powerful motivator. The essence of virtue signaling. At its core, virtue signaling involves showcasing one's moral beliefs and values, often in a way that garners social approval. This can be seen in various forms, such as sharing posts about trending social issues, wearing symbols of support, like ribbons or badges, or making public statements that align with popular ethical views. While the intent behind these actions can vary, the common thread is the desire to be seen as morally upright. Virtue signaling can be traced back to basic human behavior. People have always sought social approval and belonging by aligning themselves with the values and norms of their community. However, the scale and visibility of this behavior have been amplified by social media, where every action is subject to public scrutiny and validation. A critical aspect of virtue signaling is the distinction between public display and genuine intentions. Public display refers to actions taken to showcase one's moral values to others, often with the goal of enhancing one's reputation. Genuine intentions, on the other hand, involve a sincere commitment to the cause, regardless of whether these actions are seen or acknowledged by others. Performative activism. Performative activism is closely related to virtue signaling and refers to actions that are intended to demonstrate support for a cause, but are more about appearance than substance. This can include actions like posting a black square on Instagram during Blackout Tuesday, participating in viral challenges, or making public declarations of support without following through with meaningful actions. There are numerous examples of performative activism in recent history. One notable case is the Ice Bucket Challenge, which went viral in 2014 to raise awareness and funds for ALS research. While the challenge succeeded in raising significant funds and awareness, it also faced criticism for being a superficial trend that many participants engaged in without understanding the cause. Another example is the Black Lives Matter movement, which has seen widespread support on social media. While many individuals and organizations have publicly declared their support, there has been criticism that some of these actions are more about maintaining a positive public image than driving systemic change. Corporate virtue signaling. Companies often engage in virtue signaling as part of their marketing and public relations strategies. For instance, many brands adopt LGBTQ+ friendly slogans and imagery during Pride Month, but fail to support LGBTQ+ rights or diversity in their workplace policies throughout the rest of the year. This type of virtue signaling can be seen as an attempt to capitalize on social movements for commercial gain without committing to the underlying values. Social media platforms are hotbeds for virtue signaling, with users frequently sharing posts about various social causes. Campaigns like #MeToo, #ClimateStrike and #TimesUp have gained significant traction, but they also highlight the challenges of distinguishing genuine activism from performative gestures. For example, many users who share posts about climate change may not take personal actions to reduce their carbon footprint, raising questions about the depth of their commitment to the cause. Moral implications of virtue signaling. From a moral standpoint, the ethics of virtue signaling can be examined through the lens of intent versus outcome. On one hand, if the intent behind virtue signaling is primarily self-serving, to enhance one's reputation or gain social approval, then it may be seen as ethically questionable. On the other hand, if the outcome of virtue signaling leads to increased awareness or support for a cause, some argue that it can still have positive moral value. The impact of virtue signaling on social movements is complex. On the positive side, virtue signaling can amplify important issues, bringing them to the forefront of public consciousness and mobilizing support. For instance, the widespread sharing of information about the Black Lives Matter movement helped raise awareness about racial injustice and police brutality. However, there is also a risk that virtue signaling can dilute the efforts of genuine activists, creating a superficial layer of support that lacks the depth needed for substantive change. Philosophical perspectives. In Stoic philosophy, authenticity and the alignment of one's actions with their true values are paramount. Stoics advocate for living in accordance with virtue, which involves acting with integrity and consistency regardless of external recognition or approval. From this perspective, virtue signaling may be criticized for its focus on external validation rather than genuine moral development. Utilitarianism, which emphasizes the greatest good for the greatest number, offers a different viewpoint. From a utilitarian perspective, the value of virtue signaling can be assessed based on its outcomes. If virtue signaling raises awareness and mobilizes resources for important causes, it could be seen as having positive utility, even if the individual's intentions are self-serving. Deontological ethics, which focuses on the morality of actions based on rules and duties, would likely critique virtue signaling for lacking genuine moral intent. According to this perspective, actions should be guided by a sense of duty and adherence to moral principles, rather than by a desire for social approval. Virtue signaling in politics. Politicians often engage in virtue signaling to align themselves with popular causes and gain public support. This can include making public statements, supporting high-profile legislation, or participating in symbolic acts. However, when these actions are not backed by substantive policy changes, they can be criticized as performative and insincere. One notable example is the response of various political leaders to the climate crisis. While many leaders publicly commit to reducing carbon emissions and supporting environmental initiatives, their actual policies and actions may fall short of these commitments. Analyzing specific political figures and their actions can provide insights into the dynamics of political virtue signaling. Media and virtue signaling. Media outlets play a significant role in amplifying virtue signaling, sometimes blurring the lines between genuine reporting and performative support. Coverage of social movements, celebrity endorsements, and corporate campaigns can either highlight substantive issues or contribute to the superficiality of virtue signaling. Examples of media campaigns that have been criticized for virtue signaling include major news outlets' coverage of events like Earth Day or International Women's Day. These campaigns often focus on high-profile, feel-good stories without addressing the deeper systemic issues at play. Social media and virtue signaling. Social media platforms are designed to reward visibility and engagement, which can encourage virtue signaling. The algorithms that drive these platforms often prioritize content that generates likes, shares, and comments, creating a feedback loop that incentivizes performative displays of morality. Social media influencers, who often rely on maintaining a positive public image, can be prime examples of virtue signaling. Influencers who promote social causes may face criticism if their actions are seen as inauthentic or primarily driven by a desire for social capital. Analyzing specific influencers and their campaigns can shed light on the nuances of this phenomenon. Personal relationships and virtue signaling. Virtue signaling is not limited to public figures and corporations. It also affects personal relationships. Individuals may engage in virtue signaling within their social circles to gain approval or status. This can create dynamics where moral posturing takes precedence over genuine connections and actions. Online communities, such as those on Reddit or Facebook groups, provide a microcosm for studying virtue signaling. These communities often have their own norms and expectations for moral behavior, and members may engage in virtue signaling to conform to these standards. Examining specific online communities can reveal how virtue signaling operates at a grassroots level, balancing awareness and action. The tension between raising awareness and taking genuine action is central to the debate on virtue signaling. While raising awareness is important, it must be accompanied by concrete steps that contribute to meaningful change. Strategies for achieving this balance include supporting organizations that work on the ground, volunteering time and resources, and advocating for policy changes. There are examples of campaigns that successfully balance virtue signaling with real-world impact. For instance, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, despite its performative elements, succeeded in raising significant funds for ALS research. Analyzing the factors that contribute to the success of such campaigns can provide valuable insights. The future of virtue signaling. The future of virtue signaling will likely be shaped by evolving social norms, technological advancements, and changing attitudes toward authenticity and activism. Trends to watch include AI and authenticity. Artificial intelligence can help detect inauthentic behavior and improve transparency in support of social causes. Decentralized platforms. The rise of decentralized social media platforms may reduce the emphasis on performative engagement and encourage more genuine interactions. Consumer expectations. Increasing consumer demand for corporate responsibility and authenticity may drive companies to align their actions more closely with their stated values. Virtue signaling is a multifaceted phenomenon that reflects the complexities of modern morality in the digital age. While it can raise awareness and mobilize support for important causes, it often falls short without genuine action and commitment. By understanding the dynamics of virtue signaling, individuals and organizations can strive to foster authenticity and drive meaningful change. As we move forward, the challenge will be to balance the visibility and awareness that virtue signaling provides with the need for substantive action. Embracing authenticity, leveraging technology for transparency, and holding individuals and organizations accountable for their actions are essential steps toward a more genuine and effective engagement with social causes. Through this balanced approach, we can ensure that our efforts to signal virtue lead to real, lasting impact.